Hey guys, and welcome to another Factorio Workshop. As always, I'm joined by Madzuri.
Greetings.
And today we're going over some science builds. It's been a while since we've done any science builds, and we have two submissions here. This one that we're standing in on the left, all three of these builds are by Verdeloth, and this includes a blue science, purple science, and high-tech science build each, and they're kind of all self-contained, which is pretty cool. So we'll start with this one. Blue science, it makes the materials it needs, so the drills and the engines here, and then you import the red circuits, which is this other material, and you have to import kind of the base ingredients to make all the stuff here. So
It has some internal buffering that I think is a little excessive. Of course, you do need some of these for other parts of your base, and I'd put a Roboport here probably. But this predates Roboport, so yeah, you want to build this with a iron chest or steel chest or something. But definitely limit this thing, and then replace it with a passive provider later, and you'll have plenty of supplies for later.
yeah, definitely, this is uncapped. Would definitely cap it, and then as we said, replace it. Same with the actual output build here. This is a completely uncapped chest, and you definitely do not want to be buffering this much blue science, as you were saying to me, Zuri, because it's super expensive, and there's not really any research that takes like 2 blue science packs and 1 of everything else, so there's not really a reason.
Yeah, there's no reason to ever buffer the blue science, especially in a build like this that's making a lot of them really fast. You should never consume more than this. And so saving them up will just be a waste of resources that, it's not going towards making your base bigger.
Right.
Building more outposts or trains or something.
Exactly. And these builds are all calibrated to do 120 science packs a minute, so 2 a second base. So it is pretty quick. And I really like the use of undergrounds here, though, is one thing I noticed. It helps make it compact and obviously saves belt, and it's just a cool trick to do this. So pretty straightforward. You just feed in iron and steel, and it makes the pipes here, and kind of some spaghetti, I guess, but that's kind of unavoidable. And then iron then circuits up here for the drills and the gears. So overall, pretty compact. I like it aside from the excessive buffering.
Yeah, the underground belt trick is rather nice, except I think now it makes it a little more expensive to build. Other than that, it's a good design.
That is a good point. Yeah, it does make them more expensive because they increased underground costs. But overall, good job here. This one is similar in the design that it makes the main products for the packs here, essentially. It makes all of them, in fact, the assemblers, furnaces, and electric engines all here, and then you just input the materials required for those.
And same problem as before. These are set to logistics because I think he assumed you have logistics by the time you get to the production science packs.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the buffer chests are not capped, and I would seriously consider capping these.
Yeah, it's this is a lot of, especially especially the level 1 assemblers. In fact, I would definitely cap this because at this stage in the game, you don't need like an entire chest of level 1 assemblers. Sure, they're using level 2s, but still. Overall, though, really good at just pretty much the same tricks. The underground trick for the packs. Some combined belt stuff here. One thing I did notice, which is kind of cool, is how he splits like the iron and combines it onto half of a circuit belt to feed the assembler thing over here and stuff. A really good use of kind of splitting and combining side-loading belts to get the materials everywhere they need to go.
This splitter thing is a little excessive.
Oh, this thing, yeah.
I mean, you only really need one red splitter and then 2 yellow splitters, and it'll feed it just fine. You don't need the really, really, really expensive express splitters up here at all.
That's a very good point. Yeah, and these express splitters are actually quite expensive. And this is definitely not blue belt level, so you don't need those. But yeah, all calibrated for 120 a minute. And just also for anyone who forgets, keep in mind you may be noticing this science amount, like producers are smaller, but do keep in mind that these produce 2 per cycle, same with the high techs, whereas the blue only does 1. It's pretty easy to forget that. And then this beast is the high tech, and about more than half of it is just blue circuits, which is understandable because they take quite a bit. They take 3 apiece, and blue circuits take a very long time to make.
And these 4 red belts of green circuit inputs have been going non-stop the entire time. It eats a lot of circuits.
Yeah. And I noticed just now he did forget 1 inserter here. This blue machine has not been working. But yeah, these things take forever. They oh, and another one here, it seems. A couple inserters missing here and there. There we go. So yeah, it makes all the blue circuits. The red and greens are imported. Acid is imported. And you only need 1 acid feed for all of it, for the circuits and the batteries, which are obviously made down here. Now, this is an interesting thing. Cable is belted, and normally we would very much discourage belting cable, except I would say high tech is an exception if you were saying, Zuri, if it doesn't get jammed up somewhere and can actually make it to the end on a belt.
That's correct. And if you want to upgrade these to tier 3 machines or so, you would be unable to do that since it's a single blue belt. Would not be able to pipe enough of the circuit or cabling to make this work.
Yep, exactly. So it's okay for this one, but if you were to upgrade these, either the cable or the high-tech machines to tier 3, this would no longer work. And it looks like batteries do barely make it. They look short, but all these machines are working, so I think they just barely make it down here.
Yeah, it looks like he had enough room here to build 1 more battery plant, decided he didn't need it, and got rid of it.
Oh yeah,
and just perfect space for it.
Yeah, so if you're nervous about them not making it, you can throw an extra 1 in here, and it will fit perfectly. But yeah, there you go. So there's his builds. Overall, I'd say really well done, compact. I like the fact that they're mostly self-contained, and just aside from some of the excessive higher level belts than needed and the large buffering, I would say very good.
Agreed.
All right, so then there's this monster over here, which is submitted by Nerves. I believe we've actually done a build from them before, maybe even a science build. And this is like, this reminds me actually of the, what was it, like Nature's Harmonic we did in Season 1, where it's pretty much everything contained within 1 build, aside from the very base ingredients.
Didn't the Nature's Harmonic also smelt its own steel that this does not?
Yeah, I believe it smelted its own steel, and may even have smelted some other ore, but other than the base materials, this is very similar in the fact that everything you need, even the circuits and gears and stuff, are all contained within here. And this does blue through purple science, and then high tech in the blueprint book is a separate bot-based system up top. So,
but you got to feed the top one manually, or with a just purely bot network. It's actually quite expensive to run this, and I was surprised it didn't make it into the build as as belt based.
Yeah. So this is just to show on my screen. This is a separate blueprint that I just put here. This didn't come in this big blueprint. But this row report and requester did come with this, so it was intended for these to be separate. But as Zuri said, it is a little surprising these weren't squeezed in somewhere belt-based in here. Maybe they figured at this point you would have bots and want to use them for this. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think something similar with the high tech. But getting down to the belt splitting going on down here, I can't say I approve of this tactic.
Yeah.
It's entirely too complicated, I would say, for the sake of complication. We've covered actually several different ways of splitting off belts. And if you're going to try to feed this thing with 8 belts of iron anyway, and you've got fewer than 8 inputs, why not just dedicate, a lane for each? Yeah. Coming off of a common splitter kind of thing.
Yeah, I would agree. These things are cool, and there are uses for them. However, I would say I would agree with Zuri that this is just I'm trying. It's just complicated for the sake of being complicated. I mean, if you like to mess with these, then go for it. I mean, you know, maybe he just liked doing circuit stuff and knew it wasn't really needed. But overall, I would say that yeah, it's more complicated than it needs to be by quite a bit. And going over the stuff here, this bottom belt is actually it's like a refeeder iron belt. Is it doesn't actually do anything all the way up until this point, in which it goes under these and merges into these top belts. So these are simply just refeeder belts. And
Yeah, you can see them refeeding these bottom 3 lines down here on occasion.
yeah. So you feed iron, top 4, copper, next 4, and then steel, coal, and bricks. This bottom one on this third set doesn't seem to be needed for anything. Maybe it was just there for, I don't know, just in case, or just so there's 4 belts in each row.
I'm sure there was something on it in the original factory.
Mm-hmm. So
it's just not used for this build.
Yeah. So it's kind of complicated, like just initially looking at it. I mean, it feeds under, some of these belts are combined. So this combines like steel and coal down here to go up. And we were a little confused at first because obviously engines don't need coal, but it's actually for this little plastic plant snuck in here. And, you know, pretty much everything's in here. Some pretty interesting belt navigating and such going on within this build for sure. And just looking here, you can see a few speed modules and things, probably just to make sure they can keep up with stuff. All of it is tier 3, so this is maybe something you would like upgrade maybe as you go, as you get the machines. Military is also made in here. The gun turrets are made, the grenades are made, ammo. All the plastic is made in here for purple science, and these come through, and it even includes the labs, which is pretty cool.
I'm surprised there's no productivity modules in the lab, so that's definitely something you should be doing.
Yeah, even if they're just level 1 productivities. Because I noticed he does only have level 1 speeds, so maybe even if you're only at that tech, level 1 prods would definitely be worth it in the labs. And then after that, probably within the science, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's something people rarely design for because it really screws with all the math.
That is true.
But yeah, it's definitely worth putting productivity modules in everything you can.
Mm-hmm. Now, yeah.
Yeah, starting with the silo and then science labs and then working down the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, silo definitely the best. So, just really quick. I don't know if you were able to diagnose or what these are, just so people actually know what's happening here. So like for this first one, which looks the simplest, it's reading these 2 belts and then it's saying if anything is more than 12 it can go through. So is that just saying there's like if there's more than 12 items on these belts?
Yeah, it counts the items on both belts, these 2. So it splits and then counts the 2 belts side by side and then splits again. So it counts what's on those 2 belts, and if it's greater than 12, it allows this belt to activate. So if either of these 2 are a little starved, it shoves all the input from this belt into the side branch.
Right, okay. And then if they're good on iron like they are now, it lets the rest through.
Correct. And it should be, you know, if this is pulling off a whole half, which it can't because it's only a yellow belt,
mm-hmm.
then this should be only about 50%. But you'll notice that sometimes it staggers anyway, and there'll be gaps.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of an effect of the delay from after to before the splitter to control the throughput. It's kind of unavoidable to get drops in throughput.
Right.
So even though these all go through all the way to the end with matter voids, and it should be consuming all 4 input belts. You notice over here at the very start of it, the iron staggers a bit. It kind of stops and stutters,
mm-hmm.
So it limits the input without an appreciable max throughput. So it just kind of stutters for the sake of stuttering over here at the input side.
Yeah, which is kind of what we were saying before. This is why I think these would be called priority splitters, because it's like, like giving priority. Well, maybe not priority, but it's like Jerry said, saying if there's not enough iron, then do give priority to this one and stuff. But again, as we've said, I think this is just completely not needed. You could pretty much dedicate either full lines, since you have 8 here anyway, or if you don't quite need 8, and just do simple split-offs like we've shown previously in videos that are very straightforward.
Yeah, like I mentioned at the start of this, I really don't like this kind of belt tech, I guess you can call it.
Yeah. So there you go. I would say the build within here overall is very, very good. It seems everything is pretty much working. It produces, if we look here, I'm gonna look at the last 10 minutes. We'll ignore purple, blue, and high tech because the other build's kicking in. But for red and green, this does it does exactly 75 a minute. So a little more than 1 a second, and that would actually probably be just because of the tier 3 machines. It was probably ratioed for 1 a second. And yeah, but overall very good. I like that it's kind of all contained again and stuff. Some really interesting belt tricks, but as we said, the one negative would be these just completely unneeded circuit things here for the belts.
I'm sure it's a lag machine too, if you think about it.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. Actually, that is a lot of circuit stuff turning on and off constantly. But I believe that's going to do it. You have any last thoughts, Zuri?
No, other than I agree, the top half of the build is excellent, and we didn't cover the fluids.
Right, those are pretty straightforward though, and these tanks are not included. We just did this to give this thing somewhere to send the excess.
Yeah, it produces a little more acid than you need for the build, since all it's doing is like 1 battery machine, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use the excess for other things. Other than that, yeah, it's a good build, and I don't like the belts, but that's personal preference. I think.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Blueprints in the description. Both these are blueprint books, so those will be in the description if you're interested in playing around with these. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. We'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments as always. But until next time, we will catch you later.
Later.